poem, or maybe I will write a story about it. It is going to stay with me. I feel that.
Mm, mm,
Thank
Maybe
you.
the house with the golden bricks is
yeah,
going to be
yeah,
my next poem. Who knows?
Oh, I love that.
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
Because I
yeah,
know sometimes the whole story was so amazing. When you were
yeah.
saying that, okay, that it was the crowd you were it was putting out, and it was the transformation in that moment. Suddenly, before that, okay, yes, I want to experience. I'm going to experience something new, and suddenly everything changed. Before you were outside, and then you were inside the water. It's a big, huge jump, but uh, few things always stay with you, and this is going to be my takeaway, the most
Thank you.
Mm,
important
Thank you.
from the child's point of view, how to look at things.
yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for sharing. Hello, hello, and welcome everyone. We were having such a fun time, and with all our friends, and we have very good experience. It was an experience to to listen to someone who is
What happened, Bina? I'm not hearing you. Oh, well, I'm not dropping. Oh, Bina's dropping.
have this different kind of focused attention. They observe things in a very different way, which we miss as adults. And I feel that Biela has this ability, or maybe all the new nobles or aspirants might also have that ability to to observe things without having any judgments. There was no judgment into the story, and when she was observing Camillus, she was not judging. She was observing for the reason of understanding,
Yeah,
not for criticizing, not for categorizing him. No,
yeah.
just pure observation for the purpose of understanding.
Hmm. Hmm.
And also with the she was going there with having this thing in the forefront of her consciousness, that there
Wow.
is some goodness there, and I'm going to connect with that particular goodness.
Yes, exactly. And that's a big takeaway there, Bina. That's a huge point you make. That underlying assumption of moreness. Yes,
Yes.
that receptivity to it. It's not even an assumption. It's taking it for granted because she knows it's there. Yes. Yeah. Right.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. 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 This is a very big deal. Very big deal. Very big deal. Very, very, very big deal. Massive, 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 massive. That's a big shift though, in terms of our awareness, our understanding, everything. Yeah. It's a very, very, very big shift to to know that there is goodness inherent in someone and to connect to
Mhm.
it. Yes.
Yes.
This is a very big difference to assuming it's there or believing it's there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're receptive to the goodness that's already there. This is a big difference. It's not an assumption. It's not a belief. Yeah.
Exactly.
Very big
Exactly.
difference. Very big difference. Very big difference. All right. Bina, in case you can't see the comments, Norma says hello. She says hello, Bina.
Hello. Hello, Norma.
Yeah. Hello, wonderful Norma. Absolutely. Hello, wonderful Norma. Hello, hello, hello. Oh, I'm glad you're here, Norma. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. And Norma's doing well, doing great, and Norma's just wonderful and magical. So, and Norma's happy, then it's just wonderful. It's good when you're happy, Norma. It's important. It's important. Same with Bina. It's important. It's important to the world. You guys bring so
Yes.
much to the world, It brings so much. It brings so much. It's a big deal. It's a very big deal. Oh, I just love it when you're happy. All right. Be nebulous. What are we doing?
Yes. Oh, the story. We will continue with the story.
All right. All right. All right.
And you are going to read and continue because I am doing something.
All right. All right. Give me a moment. Just want to finish the sharing. It's a little slow. It's a little slow. Just Facebook has really been very slow. The connectivity, and you do things, you wait. It's not just me who's experienced this. And just know for others, if you see this, that it is a Facebook thing lately. It is a Facebook thing lately. Yeah, I mean, I can't even share it to the page now. It's like, come on, really. It's tardy. Try again. All right, I'm back. It dropped me. That's why it was so
It
slow.
was a subtle thing. So Biala was excited. Biala was laughing and feeling so happy about for Camillus, and Camillus was
Mm.
responding in a completely different way. But there was a subtleness which was coming, like acceptance brings subtleness. And I feel that this is what was happening. Yesterday's mood was that subtle thing. Though under the surface, a lot was happening. It was very deep consideration. It was very deep perspective. It was very deep deliberateness and sophistication involved into it. But on surface, everything was smooth and subtle. This is the magic of receptivity, which allows you to have both the deep sophistication with the subtle lightheartedness and everything. Okay, so please continue.
I shall. One more second, yeah. One more. There we go. Man, maybe one more. No, that's all done. All right, brilliant. Let me just get back to the page. Back to group. Okay. And get back into the live. There we are. Turn off the audio. So many little things. What does Norma say? We are light bringers. I thought it was your no, that has no effect on things. It just is the internet, Facebook. Well, Facebook, because they're so huge and have so much traffic going into it, that they have to keep on continually upgrading their service. And as people share more and more video, they have to update. So they seem to be a little bit behind. So things are a little slow from Facebook for that reason. All right. Let's get Biella up and do screen share. Where did we stop, Bina? Where did we stop? Tell me where.
I think Norma told us that it was 28 or 18, something with 8.
Camillus solidified slightly. Yeah, we went past that. And then it's got to be 18. I don't think it's 28. I don't think it's that long. Yes. Camillus was amazed. Like they looked into my... Oh, I love it. Yeah, the kind of things happen to us all the time. Oh, it's where... Right, it's on page 19 that we are at. Yes. Right. Well, that we're going to start. So yes, 18. Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Norma. That's most helpful. Yeah. All right, Tasaba, you just have to wait. Brilliant. So we wanted to go over this, Bina, before you do your things, right? Okay, all caught up, Camillus suddenly said, as if things had somehow fallen into place just then. I must say, I am surprised at the turn of events. When I first heard how accomplished our polymath Ursula was, I was a bit surprised to think that you or any of the group would be impressed by an expert player of the status quo game, but I accepted it as a descriptor. It was part of who Ursula was, and I could accept that without attributing any glamour to it. So I was again surprised to learn no one was impressed, not even Ursula herself. Then, of course, the comment about having the right of it made perfect sense. Biala giggled slightly. I love that you were surprised that new nobility have a strong counterculture. They continually employ and partake of activities. We break down any habits of structuring, especially when it comes to ego constructs. Now, this point is what Norma wants more on, right? And it's a good point. This one of habits of structuring. What does that mean for you, Bina? Unless you can't say because you're busy, all right, and I'll say.
Yes.
But
Yes, please.
all right, so habits of structuring would be things like assuming we know how the world works. All right. Somebody was sharing with us a fantabulous story about fishing as a child. I'm going to paraphrase this marvelous story. Because yes, it's a personal story, but it's a wonderful story. So I'll just share the abstract point about the world doesn't work the way we think it does. She went fishing with her friends. She caught a fish and everybody got all excited. But then she was feeling the pain and the struggle and the panic of the fish. And as she was pulling it out, she said, no, put it back, put it back, put it back. And she was a child, right? And she was distraught at this. In other words, for her, the world worked very differently to the way it works for the rest of us. Yes. We tend to forget this. We assume it's the same for everybody. No, it's not. Yeah. And same with this habits of structuring. When we start to say, wait a second, the world does not work the same way for everybody. The world doesn't even work the same way that I believe it does. The world is a magical, mysterious place. There's more to it than we think, right? And that's the first point of habits of structuring, is to break the big structure, to say it's not a solid thing, it's flexible and fluid. A lot of people don't want to know this. Why? Because structure makes things safe. But structure also makes you vulnerable, right? Think back in the days to when they had walled cities. Yes. Those, or castles. Yeah. You think you're all safe inside your castle, inside your walled city. What happens? Somebody comes and sieges you, and well, then yeah. The advantage lies with the sieger, not the besieged. Now your safety becomes a prison, a trap. See? So we have to be careful about structures which we believe give us safety and security. They also become traps and prisons, depending on circumstances. Yes. So everything is about appropriateness. We have to have that understanding of appropriateness. Yes. It's very important. Very, very important. That's what I mean, habits of structuring. Now, of course, that's a physical thing. But our habits, we can build these castles around us, those walls, to keep us safe and secure through our habits, our routines, but they can also be very limiting. Yes. And this is the same that happens with a self-conception. I'm a this, I'm a that. Yes, it gives me some definition and it gives me some way of saying I am this and that. But if it's too narrow, it makes you very limited also. There's a plus and a minus to these things. That's why appropriateness is the key to everything. And the philosophy of appropriateness is a practical philosophy, because it allows us to say, yes, it's appropriate to live in the walled city, in the castle, but at the same time, I need to be able to roam in the free world as well, right? I need to have both skills. I need to have both abilities, both options, as appropriate, that I'm not limited to only one thing. Yes. Yeah. And especially when it comes to an ego construct. Now, right, look at narcissists. This came up in another conversation earlier today. Right? I was talking about the converses, and I said, look, they don't know, they don't have self-love. That's why they struggle to love others. You can't really love others if you don't love yourself. Forget about it. Doesn't work, right? But with narcissists, you would think they are totally in love with themselves. No, actually, what goes on inside is self-loathing. That's the word the person used. Self-loathing. Yeah, and that's accurate for narcissists. They know they're hollow, and they use the narcissism to combat and counter the hollowness. They don't want to make the effort to truly learn because they're too vain to acknowledge that they need to learn. So they pretend they know, they pretend they're wonderful, they pretend they're awesome in order to combat this hollowness, the truth that they know. But this puts them in a loop because they never actually improve. And because they never actually improve, it just reinforces the fact that you don't know and reinforces the self-loathing, which now leads to even more narcissism to try and combat it. Round and round they go, right? They're not breaking. That's an ego construct, in other words, right? This narcissism combating the hollowness. Just acknowledge that you need to learn, for heaven's sake, and then you can break those barriers, those walls, and there you go. Now you're free, right? Just face and deal with the awful truth. You don't know. All right, you don't know. So what? Yeah. You got to learn. So what? Doesn't matter. Yeah, all right, you got to kind of start from when you were young, right? You got some catching up to do, but so what? It's better than being stuck in that nonsense that you're in. And of course, they don't want to think that way, right? Because what's important to them is another ego construct, which is vanity, status, self-importance. I got to look good. I can't look bad, blah, blah, blah. All those superiority paradigm constructs. It's a construct, meaning it's something that's been made. It's artificial. Yes, construct. Construct by definition is artificial. So this structuring and ego constructs, it's about artificiality. Yes, sometimes they have value, but it's all about the appropriateness, right? Understand it for what it is and see, is it working? Yes or no? If it's not working, change. Don't get locked into the construct. Is your castle working for you? Well, no, I'm under siege, not working. Well, time to change. See? Yes, like Norma says, castles invite jealousy. Precisely. Be appropriate. Be appropriate. It's an artificial construct. And a castle is like narcissism. Yes, you build great big castle, but it's also vulnerable. Yeah. Well, and most, when you're under siege and you're the horrible narcissist, your siege is vulnerable because why? Anybody who doesn't like you because you've been a horrible, nasty lord goes and opens up the gate in the middle of the night and lets the sieges in, and there you go. It's all over. Right. Exactly. They take effort to maintain. Right. Have appropriate structures. Have appropriate structures that are fluid and flexible and adjustable. Yeah. There's no one right answer. It all depends on circumstance. That's the point of appropriateness. Some circumstances it's appropriate, others not. All depends, right? So constructs tend to limit us because they don't have that flexibility. Yeah? We want to build flexible things, which aren't, if they're flexible, well, they're not really a structure. Yes. But they can be. It's just how you define the word, right? To understand that, yes, I've got something that changes and adapts. It's a structure, but it's a flexible structure. That's what we want. Those are ideal, yes. Adaptive structures, which aren't really structures then, right? Because they're adaptive. So we want appropriateness. All right. Does that make sense now, Norma? Before I move on. Yes, Norma? Exactly. Flex us lets us not only expand, but also contract when needed. Yes. I mean, imagine if you had that huge, great big walled city and it's massive and you need lots of men to defend or women or soldiers to defend the walls, right? But let's say you had an ability to contract those walls and compact the city. Okay, now it's like, hey, we're very tight and, it's easy to defend. See, all right, in reality, of course, this isn't technically possible. Well, I suppose in future worlds it could be, right? Because you could maybe make it go underground or whatever. Anyway, dropped and I came back really quickly. All right. I want to say we're going to continue and on this point of hearing, capital H hearing. I was saying about it that, when we learn to hear, we hear so much more than people realize they're saying. Yeah. Yeah. Like when Camellia says, I have sometimes wished I could be as emotionally honest as. He doesn't say as who, right? By
Yes.
implication, Ursula, Biella, right? Why not,
Yes.
Camelius? What's stopping you? Without the application, it's all useless. Yeah, means nothing. See, no application. This is the problem for Camelius. He understands, but his whole world is based on understanding, full stop. From the new nobility's perspective and way of impeccability, which their entire culture is, that's the foundation of their culture. It's ADU, awareness, discernment, understanding, ... not dot. Why? Because those are the precursors, the steps leading to application. You need those in order to apply. They're not a goal in and of themselves. Yes? I mean, when you truly understand, you understand that you need to apply. Yeah. So Camelius's understanding is little u understanding, not capital U understanding. Capital U understanding, oh, well, without application, I understand without application, it's all useless or meaningless. Yeah. So we have to understand that difference. Very important. So yes, you don't have to have the application added, because true understanding includes application. Make sense? Pina, make sense?
I was saying yes, yes, and then I was on mute.
That's
Yes.
all right. I just want to check. This is a key point. That's a very key point. To understand the difference, capital U understanding, little u. For Camelius, it's the be-all and end-all of his life understanding. Even so, though, it's little u understanding, sadly. He's under the impression that it's a capital U, but without application, it cannot be. Yeah. But, says Camelius, it seems too hard line to be unwilling to compromise. He is a bit, right, unwilling. And he's aware that when you're a hardliner, that's usually when you stick to your guns, you don't give up. In other words, unwilling to compromise.
Yes.
Yeah. But he's also saying that there's an expectation that he shares emotionally, that he does change, that he does shift. Yeah. And he's saying, because he's now talking about himself as a character. So we've got in the smaller context of Camelius as a person, but in this context that him and Biella are discussing, they're also discussing him as a character. And in a meta view, the fact that he doesn't do what's expected makes him a valuable character. So when we really look at this in all the layers, right? In the layer of Camelius personally, yes, changing would be good. But would that help the story? No, it'd just be another Ursula. We already have this in the story. Yeah.
Yes.
The fact that that Camelius doesn't change and does have this conflict, does have this problem, and does get stuff, brings the contrast. That's brought us so much value from saying, what's the difference between Camellia and Ursula? But there's a twist to Camelius in that he is aware that he's serving a greater function. He's serving the story as a whole by not serving himself personally. It's an incredible thing. It's an act of nobility. Yes?
Yes.
Isn't that something?
Yes.
This is a difference in the story. The story has deep deep layers to it, right? And because of the character Camellias being constructed from this incredible interaction between myself and my incredible friend, and there's a moreness to it that's not obvious. Now we are going to see, though, and it's, there's a lot of truths and not truths in how this works. We are going to later see how this also impacts on my friend's life, or at least in this case, Camelius's personal life, that how this becomes somewhat of an excuse to avoid doing things too. It's not quite as simple as it seems. Yeah. There's more to it. There's more. There's always more. Yeah. He finished, his mood shifting ever so slightly. Biala took note. An unusual comment, somewhat out of context. Seems like, but not really. Seemed indirectly connected to the flow of the connection. But this Biala had been waiting for. She'd been waiting for these anomalies so that she can go and move and shift and adjust to them, right? Because if you just get what's expected, there's, you already see where the thing is going. There's not going to be change. Yes, right. Much was going on inside Camelius. These utterances, reflections of his inner world, which would allow Biala to reflect back. Those inner revealings, when containing the uncomfortable, typically came out somewhat scrambled. That's just a nuanced point on capital H hearing. That when someone's sharing what's uncomfortable, it doesn't always come out clearly. It's uncomfortable because they don't want to face all of it. Yeah, so therefore it comes out scrambled. And of course, sometimes it comes out, they don't want to face it at all, but it's coming out about somebody else. But it's actually about them, again, somewhat scrambled, right? Just a very nuanced, very sophisticated understanding. I love it, Norma. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love that you're with us. Love that you're with us and sharing and being here. It's beautiful, wonderful. Biala considered. She felt, she waited. Deliberate actions. Yeah. Feeling can be in two ways, right? Okay. Like if I go with my finger now and I'm feeling my hand. Yes. That's an overt action. That's me making it. It's a doing. Yes. But that's on this hand, the hand that's doing the feeling. But this hand is also feeling, but it's reactive, passive, responsive, right? Because something is on the hand, right? I'm feeling with this hand now. So this hand's feeling is different to this hand's feeling, correct?
Yes.
Two different things. So feeling can be both passive and active. We have to understand this difference. It's because the words, or at least in English, they're the same word. She felt, right? My hand felt. I could say my hand felt, right? My hand felt. Which hand? They both felt. Yes. In this case, she's the hand that's reaching out and feeling, not the passive one. Yeah. She's extending her feelings out toward Camelius and probing and shaping and exploring, like she's running her hands over him. But she's doing that with her feelings, yes, rather than just sitting there and letting it come to her. Very different thing, yes. To feel someone actively is a very different thing to then feeling them passively. Yes, it's a skill we can learn. It's not automatic. We tend in our lives to be mostly passive in our feelings. And we assume that our feelings are generated by things outside of us because we just default to passive feeling. And therefore, like, well, I wake up in the day, well, how am I going to feel? Well, is it a nice day? Oh, it's a nice day. Okay, well, now I can be happy. Huh? See? I believe my feelings need to be somehow activated by external things. Well, I'm bored. Well, oh, let me watch a movie. See? Now I change my feelings through something external. You can do it internally. You don't need external things. So we have to understand this nuance on feeling, and it's not in the language. Yeah. And understand that it can mean both things. Very, very important understanding. So she felt and she waited. Yeah. I actually need to put that felt in italics to make this difference. And it's a capital F feeling as well. So very important, very important. She felt, she waited. Yes, she finally said, and added peculiarly, slipping into third person, using an informal tone. What do you think the prognosis is for camellias, considering these latest perspectives? Prognosis. Prognosis. Not where do you think Camellias is going? What's Camellias's story arc? How do you see the things changing for Camellias? What is the prognosis? Which a prognosis is how you are looking at an illness or a disease or an injury, and you're saying, this is how I believe it's going to turn out. That's what a prognosis is, right? It's how you believe something that's not right is going to become right. A particular term. Yes. Camillus went straight into the same perspective shift. I like his character. I think he has a spot. He's perhaps a bit grumbly and woolly, which is a nice counterpoint to some of the more bushy-tailed. And here we get that bigger point, yeah? Camillus is a contrast character. I didn't set about with the intent to write this, but I set about with an intent to apply and put into practice the deeper, greater philosophy. And my intent was assisted in Camillus by giving the contrast. And the greater philosophy was, yes, when I started, it was all about the positive side of it, nobility, etc. But you need to have an understanding of the superiority paradigm. Otherwise, you're going to have a house of cards. Yes, you can't have an ideal structure that doesn't understand the realness. You've got to be real. You can have idealism, but it needs to be founded on a bedrock of realism. And when we look in history, and there are not that many utopian novels, they are very rare. There's tons of dystopian novels. In other words, where the world collapses and implodes and it's negative, and the end of the world, post-apocalypse and all this, right? Those are all dystopian worlds. Dystopian means an undesirable state of affairs, an undesirable system, way of things working, collapsed structures, etc. Utopian is idealistic, visionary, yeah? And those typically are very criticized. And the main criticism is always, it's unrealistic, yeah? And this is the importance in the new nobility story, that most utopian stories, the structure is like planet-wide or the whole world, and it's the whole society and all this. And they're trying to force everybody into this idealistic mold. It's what makes the story different, is to say, this is for those who want it only, not for everybody. Doesn't mean everything else is wrong. Absolutely not. Everything else is right also. It's not either or, not mentality of opposites. Right? Just because one thing is good doesn't make anything else that's different to it automatically bad. That's idiotic thinking. Yes. That's that black-white logic. No, it's ridiculous. Good, bad, either or. No, no, no. There are lots of colors. And so when we consider colors, we say, wow, this is just one color out in the world. Nobility is a color. You want to be business, sports, art, whatever. Whatever you want to do, that's your color. All colors are valid. All colors are valid. You know what? I'm going to add that. Who said that, Veena? Do you know who said that? Can you guess?
No.
Oh, come on. Oh, come on. All colors are valid as a quote. Who am I quoting?
The young man.
Oh, you don't think because it's so short and condensed, it's going to be someone else?
Yes. Fine
Ooh,
level.
there you go. Thank you very much. That's totally a fine quote. Yeah. All colors are valid. Absolutely. And you see, no, that's not bad spelling. That's English spelling for colors, not colors. Eh? It's colors, not colors. Right? All colors. But he's saying capital C colors. In other words, all flavors. Yes. And he says capital V valid, as in not just, well, no, useful, can be lived, or appropriate, right? Not contrasting, etc. Yeah? There's more to this quote, in other words. Yeah. Let me add it to my quote file as well while I'm about it. I don't forget. Yeah. Do it now, later never comes. Yeah. Do it now, later never comes. By definition. Because when later comes, it changes into now. You can't do things later. Later doesn't really exist. Anyway, it's a big deal, this. A very big deal, yes. So Camillus, not so. Camillus thus is very necessary in the story for the appropriateness of the entirety of the story as an idealistic novel. It's also not only a utopian novel, but it's also a visionary novel, and also it's speculative. So its full category title is a utopian, visionary, hang on, speculative, visionary, utopian fiction. Now, it's also real, right? I think maybe you can add it in as philosophical. I think that's a genre now, philosophical fiction. Right. Yes, where's he headed? Asked Biala, her deeper interest aroused. See the sense, it wasn't necessarily obvious. Camillus would return to his homeworld. At least to her, it's not. The delegates had no time limit to the visit. A few had returned already. The rest seemed content to find their own way around. None of them had requested Biala or reached out to Ursula. She would get word out to them to attend the origin storytelling later. Biala made a mental note to ask Ursula to do so, to be inclusive and make that extra effort for Ursula to connect. Camillus took his time answering. In your story, I don't know, he began. Biala marveled how the detached perspective and third-person stance brought forth such revealing insights. It is something amazing. How often do we speak of ourselves in the third person? Very seldom. It is a useful thing to do, at least maybe not in speech, but especially when writing. Yes, it's why, for me, I wrote the young man's story. And, it started off as the young man's story. And then also, as it went backwards in time, the young man's story and also the young boy's stories. But this started with a gift of intent. And I wrote that, and I was pressed by the universe to write that, right? It was force of circumstance, attunement. And I really was being very much pressed to write the story down, right? The story of life change, right? Because a lot of people ask me, well, how did this all begin? Where did it start, and how did it come about that you live this way, etc. Right? There's a lot of pressure on this, and so I started to write it down. But then, as I was writing it, it was I all the time. This made me dreadfully uncomfortable, right? And also, when you're writing it in that first person to say, I did this, I did that, it just sounds egotistical and it sounds self-centered. And now I'm not really cared about other people's position, but it was conveying the story inaccurately. And I couldn't say what really was going on totally. So I said, well, and then I said, how can I write this? And then I came up with a young man. Well, because I was a young man at the time. And that's how it started, Bina. I don't know if I ever said that before. And that's how the young man came about. Because
Wow.
I needed a third person construct in order to be able to tell the deepness of the story, to tell the abstract, right? Because
Yeah.
if I were to say, look, like that point where the young man was a bit sad or reflecting, when you say it about yourself, I don't know, it's just kind of lame, I'm not able to, my modesty doesn't allow me to say it in first person. But my realism and my accuracy when in third person, now I'm shifting into a different brain and I can objectively look at myself and now I can write what's appropriate. It's just amazing. Try it. Your next story you write, right? That's a memorable event or anything. Write it in third person.
Okay.
When you can say Bina did this, Bina did that, or you can say, the young woman, the young lady, yeah. You can give it you give yourself a name, fabulousness, magicness, whatever. Yeah, many ways to do it, right? But most commonly, people just write about themselves as Bina. But I would recommend, though, using something like the young woman, the young name, the power learner, whatever, right? Something that's got a little bit more remove, because it enables you to get into a different brain. Because now it's as if you're writing about somebody else. Yes, it's you, but it's as if it's somebody else. And now you get that objectivity coming in, that massive perspective shifting. It's a fabulous thing. Yeah, yeah. But we can't live in our imagination. Exactly. We cannot. Yeah. Is going to be reflective. You have to be normal. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Now Biela's probing here because she wants to know where Camillus is at. Yes. And she's also providing him an opportunity to say. And it's very revealing. It's very, very revealing. How for Biela, she absolutely sees a possibility of him not going back. Yeah, but in his mind, well, he's going to go back. He never does. But yet in his mind, he's going to. Yeah, interesting. Changes the behavior, changes the psychology. Right. Camellia says, but the arc of his tale is usually the loner who has to struggle with something by himself on his own, mentally or physically. Something, of course, pertinent to his learning and development, something which he can then take back to his tribe as a good. If he does go back, or when he does go back, because he will at some point, he will be revolutionizing his home world. Yeah. The planet Academia. That's what it's called. His planet is called Academia. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's an academic planet. That's the whole focus there, right? So it's called Academia. Nobelia, Academia. Yeah. Does he see himself going back? This is Biela wondering, not asking it directly. It's an internal thought, right? Because it's in italics. Yeah. How would that be shaken up so as not to conform to the usual arc? She prompted. Oh, that's Biela saying. How would that be shaken up so as not to conform to the usual arc? In other words, Biela saying, we don't want to write the usual story. We don't want to just be all full of tropes and cliched and the usual thing. How does this tweak it a little differently? Not that this is a specific intent of Biela's, or at least of the author in this case, me. It wasn't an intent to do things differently, but she's asking because Camillus brought this up, right? And she already said the new nobility, they don't do things in the usual way. And since everything here is so different, how would this stereotype also now be different and not be a stereotype, not be a cliche? Yeah, right? Well, it could be something collaborative. I mean, oh, then she says, I mean, do you see him going back to his homeworld? Biela asked more pointedly, keen to press the issue a bit, sensing ambivalence in him. She really wants to know. This is a key issue because it changes his psychology. Yeah. Or potentially can change his, yeah. Or to really shake it up, it could turn out to be a mole for the empire. And see, he hedges here. He doesn't want to say because there's ambivalence in him. And he knows if he says, well, he's going back, then, well, it's all over. So he knows, right? He says. Now, of course, he's talking about Star Wars Empire, yeah, which doesn't really exist in Well, it does, because it's a history coming back to Earth, but she's so far removed from that, it's long since, the cultural references is long since died. Biala was not sure at all to which empire he was referring, but his laugh was infectious. She laughed with him. He slightly surprised Biala by saying, yes, why would he not go back to his home world? Because he's already said that really he should do what Ursula's doing. That's why. He doesn't feel that he belongs. He doesn't feel that he could belong. It's one thing to feel you don't belong. Ursula didn't feel that she belonged either. She felt like a child, like an idiot, like an ignoramus. She felt like stupid there. Yeah. But she kept her mouth shut. And then she says, I want to belong. I want to be an aspirant. It's the same as saying, I want to belong. But Camelius, where was I
You're back?
last? Yes, I'm back. I was saying about Camelius feeling that he doesn't belong. Yes, that's where I was last. Yeah. Pina, can you hear me?
No. So it's breaking big time. I cannot understand what you're saying. Yes, I can hear you, but it's not clear.
Yeah. All right, we'll just give it a little while to settle
No.
down. I was saying Camelius feels that he doesn't belong and that he cannot belong.
Okay, yes.
He's confusing the two, conflating the two. Not the same thing. We must be careful of this. Just because we feel we don't belong doesn't mean we can't belong. Ursula understood this. Yeah. Big difference between the two of them. Very big difference. Yes, that's how it's spelled. Norma Academia, the planet Academia. Very cool. All right. Yes, says Camelius. Why would he not go back to his home world? This is like a conference weekend, right? Geez, you people. 2 days out of the office and suddenly you're booking flights to a room world and planning startup ventures. Is that me dropping or you? Oh, that's Bina this time. Oh, wow. All right, well, we keep going. We'll be persistent. Biala was not sure how to take the remark, so much to it. She decided to reply with something neutral and see where it led. Yes, although there isn't a time limit for the visit of the delegation. They can stay as long as they like as individuals. They're not bound as a group. Their coming was arranged by the AG. Now that they are here, the new nobility, via myself, and now also Ursula, deal with them. In other words, she was mandated and tasked by admin. The delegation came, and whoever was on duty in admin at the time, because it rotates, in other words, basically whoever's in charge of such things, and it changes in the new nobility. It's random. Your turn. You're in admin, right? You're in charge of everything right now. That's it. Everybody gets a turn to be in charge. And it's admin, not leader. That's an ego thing, Oh, you the leader, you the chief. No, nonsense. You're just admin, Now it's not quite so glamorous, right? And there's no ego involved. It changes the whole logic, yeah. All right. Well, you're admin. Anyway, whoever was an admin said, well, I got to assign somebody to take care of the delegation. And this is what admin does. And well, it could be a group of people, but for whatever reason, they picked Biala. Yes. Now, likely in a situation like that, just the way the new nobility are, they're very collaborative. And this is a big decision. So likely they would have brought in whoever's available at the time and said, hey, what do you think? And they would have had a nice group discussion about it. That's just how they are, right? And of course, as admin, you can co-opt anybody to say, hey, I need you to give me a hand here, right? Because that's your job. So whoever's doing what, sorry, you got to come help me. All right, of course, you're not going to choose people who are really involved in something that they can't be taken away from. But if they can, say, hey, come give me a hand here. Of course, as appropriate. This is an appropriate thing. It needs to be dealt with. And it's appropriate that many are involved, right? So they'll make a group thing. Just a little bit of aside of how the system works. It's quite a magical system. Now, of course, the key to it is the underlying automation of the system. And now you might say, yeah, but that's future science fiction. It's not very realistic. Nonsense. Not so. We've had fully automated car factories since 1979. I remember that. It was a big deal at the time, big news stories, right? First fully automated car factory. Now, they got it wrong. It was a story about a Toyota car factory, but actually Peugeot had already had it before then. There was somebody else. Nonetheless, right? 1979, this was a big deal. Fully automated. And robot automated, robots. They call them robots, but just full automation. It's not technically a true robot. Makes no difference, right? Fully automated. Minimum number of people involved. We have the technology. We don't have the will to automatically do it. Why? Because of things like people fearing for their jobs. The robots are going to take our jobs, etc., etc. The new nobility changed all that in the agglomeration, right? When they first started with the agglomeration, and some of the planets weren't enlightened, and they didn't fully adopt the noble ideal, and they didn't think things through and all this, and they were locked in their bubbles, and they're concerned about jobs. I said, look, it's very simple. The way to take away this fear of robots taking away your job, just shift it up and make a robot tax, which means the robot now does your job for you. And all people get paid as they share in the profits of the work that the robots do. Oh, you mean the robot's going to do our work for us? Yes. What do you need to dig trenches for? The robot can do it. What do you need to go and build the cars for? The robot can do it. What do you need to work in a factory for? The robot can do it for you. Oh, so what am I going to do? You're going to be paid to learn and grow and have fun and pursue your spirituality and whatever the hell you want to do. This is your task and purpose in life now. Oh, well, that's a very different society. And why should that not be so? Why should that not be so? The only reason people say that is because those who want to entrench being at the top where they get all the money and everybody else doesn't, I say, yeah, but if nobody's working, then I can't be taking their money and being the most richest and wealthiest. It's just a stupid fear. We can all be rich and wealthy. There's more than enough wealth for everybody if it's spread out. And there'll be even more with automation. My point is, it's not unrealistic. It's politically unrealistic because nobody said about the robot tax. I never thought of this, right? But when you say, what are you afraid of robots for? Or automation? They're going to do the work for you. You're going to get paid. So, of course, they have a universal basic income. Everybody gets paid to be a citizen. You get paid to pursue your passions. You get paid to be a fan. You get paid to watch TV and give likes and thumbs ups and things like this, right? Or just by watching programs, they have a way to monitor and see how many people are watching it and liking it. And this is what feeds the system, right? Now, those making these things, they do it because they love doing it, not because they have to. They do it because they love doing it. Right? Now you can follow your passion. Well, I always wanted to be a this, I always wanted to be a that. People who are doctors, for instance, just for argument's sake, or farmers, they're going to be it whether they get paid well or not. Look how many poor farmers there are. They love farming. Yeah. Now you do what you love doing, and everybody's there voluntarily. How much better is it that people are doing things because they want to rather than they have to? So much better. Whose restaurant do you want to go to? The person who loves it, who wants to run a restaurant, or the person who does it because, well, I need a job, I need to make money. See? Big difference, big difference. So this is a shift. The whole ag is based on the system, right? Where you get to do what it is that makes you happy. You get paid to be a citizen. Why? Because you've got automation. Now on Nobelia, they really take it to the extreme. Out in the ag, They don't have it for everything because it's, of course, it's very capital intensive, but they have it for the main things. So there are still jobs. There is still a regular economy, and people do still need to work. And of course, there's a disproportionate wages for jobs that people don't want to do. Yeah, like plumbers. Like plumbers are just, man, they all, like the wealthiest people are plumbers. Yes, nobody wants to be a plumber. I'm just saying, for example. Of course, some people do, but still. If you want to make money, just go and do plumbing for a while. That's it. Yeah. So a lot of people do that to build up their capital. It's just that, or they learn to do it themselves. And they don't want to spend the money, right? So people tend to be a bit more self-reliant. Or of course, you find robots to do it, but some plumbing jobs, robots don't do so well. Yeah. Anyway, it's a different system. A different system. I'm just trying to point out there's absolutely no need for us to not have an economy, and that is a automated economy. None. No reason for it technologically. We have the technology to have an automated economy. Yes. All things that are manufactured, they can be automated. Yes, you still have people involved to a small degree, but they all can be automated, yeah, as much as possible. The only thing that stands in the way of it is the fact that labor is cheap. If all that automation went towards saying, hey, you want to use automation, you got to give a tax on it, and that tax goes to the universal basic income, and life is easy. This is a fantastic system. Everybody benefits. Everybody benefits. It's a very profound system. Very profound system. It's the deeper underlyingness of what makes this story real. Norma, you mentioned this before. Is it real? Yes, it's real, right? Yes, it's a fictional example of the application of things that are very, very real or could be real. Yeah, like this, the underlying economy. Yeah, and again, the way that the Nobelia is set up, right? It's based on real understandings of how things can be, not could be, but can be. So difference. Could be is speculative, can be is real. Yeah, yeah, very big deal. Very big deal. So Biela was tasked with looking after the delegates, and it's just the universe, the way things came out. We don't know exactly how that came about, but somebody said, hey, you know what? Biela would be perfect for this. Yeah, because they realized that Biela was sort of languishing, not languishing, but um, she was technically an aspirant. But really, you know what, Biela, come on, seriously, we can't force you to be a new noble. But this is to put a little bit of pressure for Biela to say, to kind of acknowledge. And that exactly happens, right? She comes to that decision, as we're going to see in a little bit, as the story goes on. Well, not in a little bit, but in the next chapter or two. Camillus again said something interesting. I can't tell you for myself. I'm hoping we do get out the classroom and into the field at some point. Biela found it revealing he considered himself to be in a classroom, but she couldn't get a grip on what he may consider getting out in the field to mean. She'd stay neutral and innocuous. The rest are mostly career politicians or diplomats. Ursula came because she's the rising star and wanted to come. Her world is newly discovered. Not a part of the egg yet. She wanted Camillus to have a chance to get to that place inside himself which seemed unresolved. Camillus added, maybe a visit to another world, one which isn't represented by the delegation. I don't know. Camillus was an academic. His world had joined the ag, but only recently. No new nobility there yet. Biela intuitively added, the new nobility are cautious and deliberate in their interactions. They ease their way in. She reflected her own statement. Not exactly inappropriate, something she, of course, already knew, and likely Camillus also, and thus not entirely necessary for the situation. So it's not inappropriate, but it's not exactly pertinent and relevant either. So it's a little bit redundant, really, right? But now this, because she's saying something that she sort of doesn't need to say, it's a bit redundant, it alerts her. The unexpected surfacing to her meant it would be a template right? So she takes this as a communication from herself, from the universe, right? To pay attention. And she does, because it's anomalous. Right? Like I say, it's not exactly inappropriate, but it's still anomalous at the same time. She normally she wouldn't say that, because it's like, well, it's just redundant. It's like, why say it? Yes, that would be the way to proceed with Camelius. A reminder to be cautious and deliberate, to ease her way in. Camelius stirred and said, Camelius gets caught late one night with a tube of spray coating, writing "Fractal Nobility" on a garden wall. I hope this has been a back. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Hello back. Hello back, Magical Bina. Hello, hello, hello. Right. So I love this, where he says, listen, Camelius is a character that might do completely the outrageous. Don't assume that he's just going to be the usual and the normal, right? Yeah.
Mm.
Because there's a part of Camelius, that is a bit self-destructive.
Mm.
And look how Camelius says this. He doesn't say Camelius goes out one night and takes this can of spray coating and writes fractal nobility. No, he says Camelius gets caught late one night. It's a very big difference. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
He's talking about himself as a character. He's saying Camelius can do things that are outrageous, but he kind of like, or disruptive and self-destructive, but he gets caught at it. It doesn't really work for him. He thinks this is a way to go, but it doesn't work. It's a very, very, very deep psychological statement about Camelius, the character, my friend himself. And we're going to see this later on. He's contrary, but he's contrary in a way that doesn't work for himself. Self-destructive contrariness.
Yes.
Hello, Amy. Is Amy listening to the story? Is she joining us?
No, she just came.
Okay. All good, Bina Angel. All good. Oh, I'm not sharing screen. I forgot to get back to sharing screen because it dropped me. And then when it drops me, it drops the screen sharing.
Yes.
But that last statement, that's a big point, right? It's a massive point of revelation. And boy, I never really looked at it in such depth before. I knew it, but didn't really bring it fully to consciousness. So we're going to look at this when it comes up later. Biala refrained from responding except with a laugh, most revealing. She took note of the words Camelius had chosen to use for his joke, so completely incongruous and thus significant. Yes, because there's a part of Camelius that is so anti-convention that he unfortunately extends it to anything that he might perceive as being the system. And Nobelia-Living becomes simply another system amongst all the systems. He's locked into an anti-system system. See those structures again, Norma? He's created a structure that says be anti-system, but unfortunately he's extended it to be anti-every system. And when something does come along which is appropriate, he's unable to grasp it because he set this intent to have an anti-structure structure. Make sense, Norma? Biala added to her earlier comment, its appropriateness now evident. I want to also emphasize this, that as we are communicating, sharing, interacting, we need to listen to ourselves. And to ourselves, plural. 2 words. Listen to ourselves. When we speak, we don't always speak from the same source. It comes out of the same communication channel, but its origin isn't always the same place.
Yes.
When you start to listen to yourself, who said that? Huh? Some part of Biella, her intuitive, her Moreness side, earlier said, hey, you know what? Slow down a bit, take it easy, have caution and deliberation, right? Right. So now, says Biella added to her comment, earlier comment, which didn't come from the regular her, it came from a deeper her. Yes. Now it was a little inappropriate, but now she sees the greater appropriateness. Yeah, wasn't
Yeah.
inappropriate, but it was just redundant. And because it was redundant, well, it's kind of inappropriate. Yeah. But now its appropriateness
Yeah.
is evident. The new nobility can upset systems and social orders rather quickly, just by their presence, without saying a word to anyone. This is a very gentle way to say to Camillus, Camillus, I know I am radical. I am an extreme. I am outrageous. I am preposterous. I know this, and therefore I can be severely disruptive simply by being who I am. If you walked down the street and you saw materializing in front of you from the transporter an alien, and the alien just stands there, it doesn't say anything.
Yes.
It's a disruptive process. It's a disruptive presence by implication,
Yeah.
correct? It can do
Yes.
nothing whatsoever. And it may even, let's assume it gets killed right there. So it hasn't even had a chance to do anything. It cannot do anything. It's still disruptive. Yes, because it now is
Yes.
proof that it exists. Proof of otherness existing. Now, that's less disruptive than Biella, because I cannot be an alien, but by implication, I can be a Biella. Biella is about possibility that we didn't think possible. An alien is a possibility that, yes, we know it's possible and it happens, okay, but it's not something that necessarily that I can do anything about. But Biella is a possibility that I can do something about. And because Biella is a possibility that I might want to do something about, it changes the dynamic. Now suddenly it becomes a pressure. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I just want to just go and connect to the driver again. It's a very big deal. Oh, I need to mute myself, and then you comment, please, Bina, while I go and connect. Yeah. I'm glad I
Okay.
remembered. Otherwise,
Yes.
I'm making a great big noise over here. So let me
No problem. No problem.
all right.
No problem. The new nobility can upset systems and social orders rather quickly, just by their presence, without saying a word to anyone. But drew no reaction from Cornelius. Okay. This this idea of being disruptive just by being you, it actually just put a lot of focus and not focus, but light on what we most of us struggles with. Like what I'm doing, what am I doing wrong here? Why I'm the alien in that? Like why I was never been part of that group, that cool group, or in family, why I'm a black sheep without doing anything unusual according to us. But just being ourselves can be so disruptive for the status quo, for the superiority mindset. And that actually gives the answer. It provides a kind of a resolution to me that when you have that, when you acquire that peace of being, when you have independence of being, you just being you is so disruptive for the status quo, for the superiority mindset. And some people, of course, are BMNs, and some who are not BMNs, but are still so attuned and so trained with that cliche, usual, with that norms of society and culture, they feel threatened.
Exactly.
Because by implication, if you can be different, they also need to be. They also can be. And it's a big threat. It's a big danger. It's a big fear of going through the transformation and paying the
Yes.
price for that.
Yes.
I
Very
was
cool,
just
Bina.
sharing my takeaway on that, and just
Yes.
trying to do that.
Oh,
Please
I love
continue.
it. I love it. I love it. So all the things from yesterday are coming, being delivered, which is great. Because yesterday they couldn't deliver because of the roadworks. So
Are you
very
there?
cool. Very cool. Yes, I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. Am I not unmuted? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. Well, I love what you were saying. I could,
Yes,
yeah, I could, yeah.
it's a delay and it's lagging big time.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. 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 Awesome. Thank you, Joel. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Alex. He's just training a new guy. So awesome. Camelius suddenly said in his academic voice, you too, Joel. See you, man. See you. Bye-bye. In his academic voice, when considering what is possible for anything or in any situation, we ought to be rational. The appropriate rationality for possibility is physics, as in logic, where the valid is merely what is not invalid. In physics, the universe, all is allowed, except that which is expressly denied by law. So, anything and everything which does not violate the laws of physics is possible. Yes, Biela laughed. Some more inevitable than others. Biela is so sharp, so quick, so fast. Yes. I mean, she says some more inevitable. It's a tweak, it's a play, not some more possible than others, which is the expected comment in that situation, the kind of duh. No, she tweaks it to say inevitable. She's implying in sophistication that inevitability comes from things like thinking things through to the end. When you think it through to the end, it becomes inevitable. Right? When you think a sensibility through to the end, how do you not do it? If you've discovered it's sensible, well, how do you not do it? It becomes inevitable. See? Very sophisticated, very sophisticated. Yeah, yeah. And I say she's fast. Why? Because these are real-time comments. Yeah. There wasn't a long delay there. In this conversation went on in real time originally. Right? Camelius added, tugging at his beard. That's really obvious, and I don't know why I said it. I think my pet is putting thoughts in my head. This is a real comment from my friend. His pet was there with him, of course. Yeah. But it's obvious, Camelius, and you say it because it's a powerful point that yes, anything is possible. And when we get threatened by mere presence, what she says, the new nobility can disrupt and upset systems just by their presence. He now brings out this point that anything is possible. In a roundabout way, he's saying to himself that in a world, in a universe where anything is possible, when it's not excluded because of the laws of physics. Biela can be. She's not excluded by the laws of physics. And so he's saying to himself, well, Biela's not an impossibility. She can be real. She is real. And this is a big deal that he has to break from, right? And Biela's thought here, he's broken from the circle in a spiral now, right? So now it's a spiral that can go more or can go less, right? Can get a spiral of collapse or a spiral of growth. Like Ursula spiraled upward, yes? She took that. I'm in a new system. Wow, this is incredible. I never knew this existed. This is impossible. Well, yeah, it's okay. It was impossible to me before, but I see it possible now. And she said, wow, okay, it's real. And then she said, it can exist. It's possible. I want to be a part of it, right? But Camelius is going to go the other way. Yeah. Camelius, we already did this, right? I think my thought is because he's stressing a bit, right? That's why he says the pet. But she doesn't know what to do with the pet thing, because obviously in the context of Camelius, it doesn't make sense. But in the context of my friend, it did. And well, at least the Camelius's pet could be putting thoughts in his head remotely. You know, you have telepathy sometimes in many stories. Telepathy is not bound by physical constraints, right? Biala took note, leaving the pet comment alone for now. She decided to shift back into third person, as it definitely allowed Camelius to express himself more freely. I loved it, she said. It's Camelius's version of what Ursula was trying to avoid. In her case, since the underlying system was ego and status, it's egregious. But because Camelius's underlying system is academics, it isn't. Her comment intuitive again. She deliberately opened herself, allowing what came out to be said without filtering or pre-editing. She's truly trusting herself, her deeper self, her mourner self that's connected to the mourners. Her addition not directly connected to what Camelius had said, but Biela could feel it resonate. In Ursula's case, the system is obviously ego and status, making it egregious. But in Camelius' system, it's also status and ego, but it's not overt, it's covert, which now doesn't make it egregious. It is, but it doesn't seem to be so. It's not obviously so, because it's not overt. It's equally egregious, right? So, but she's subtly trying to bring this in so that Camelius can ease into it and start making those connections, right? So she's saying it isn't egregious, but not overtly egregious. It's covertly egregious. Right. Simple, very subtle, very delicate point. She's trying to gently point out that this ego and status are still the issue, just not overt. Camelius responded, the response connecting with him. Yes, it's not the status with her, it's the ego. That's a very interesting point. Camelius isn't so much concerned. He's talking about himself now. This is totally a statement about himself, right? He doesn't really care that he's considered one of the top, but his ego, in terms of how he regards himself, is an issue. He thought he knew how the world works, but he doesn't. And it's a big deal for him. Yeah? Status is externally conferred, after all, nothing to do with one personally. But the ego thing was off-putting, not because of her accomplishments, but because of our identification with them. Because I don't care what world you're from, everyone knows the status quo is an ego construction. You play that game for one reason only, to win the approval of others. All right, now this is different, see? This is different, right? That Ursula had really clearly made it very clear that this was not what she was doing. Yes, she was winning the approval of others, but in order to obtain the goal. Just because she was under the idea this was the most and the best that she could do. It wasn't valuable in and of itself. It was valuable as an accomplishment. But then now she realized it's hollow. Yeah. But he is expressing what is still of issue to him. Approval of others is still of issue to Camelius. A shift from what I expressed earlier. And this is how you know when you're listening, because he's directly contradicting himself, right? It's fascinating how people express things. A shift from what it expressed earlier. Biala waited. She justifies it by saying it was for her own edification, but that just makes her kind of stupid. Camelius justifies it by saying it's for his own edification, but that just makes him kind of stupid. He's talking about himself again. It's profound. And this is not just a construct that I've created for the story. No, because this is a real conversation. I haven't changed the words one iota. I've just attributed them to Camelius and Biala. This is a real-time live conversation. Yes, this is very, very real. And not only that, but this where I see, like Camelius is talking about Ursula, right, in his words, but what he means is himself. I've seen this over and over and over again, many, many times. It's part of the skill of capital H, hearing to learn to hear when people are actually speaking about themselves via others. They do it because it's easier, it's more palatable, it's more able to take it in. Right? You're at a little bit of a distance. The awful truth is that Cornelius is saying, hey, he's caught up in ego. He just want to face it directly. Yeah, because that means he'd have to change. He doesn't want to make the effort to change. So he can say about his subconscious or his deeper self, brings it out through saying it to Ursula. So hopefully he hears it through his own expression. Right? Because there's no internal direct communication. So it has to go outside and then back in again, at least hopefully. Right? That's the hope of your deeper self, to make you hear yourself. Yeah. His harshness surprised Biela. She didn't think it was how Cornelius saw Ursula. No, she was fairly sure of it. Ursula, a metaphor now, a stand-in. So yeah, Biela is saying what I just said now, right? Biela said, yes, the status is the product which is sought in that game. She didn't particularly care for it. But if you're in that game with goals as she had been, one has to play. She leaves it a bit open there. Biela didn't get a chance to finish as Cornelius jumped in. Has to play? No way. Even Calvin had their rebels. Now, he says Calvin here. He means Vulcan. It's a just dyslexic typo, right? Because he was talking about Star Wars before. Now we jump to Star Trek. This is a metaphor that was part of their conversation on a regular basis, or at least mine and my friends. So he means Vulcan. And on Vulcan, you know, everything is logical and sensible. It's a very narrow society. But they had a rebel part of them that said, no, it's not all about suppressing the emotions. And it's a big part of the storyline later on, where they completely go anti everything that we believe the Vulcans stand for, and generally all the Vulcans stand for. Right? So even Vulcan had their rebels, right? Very powerful. Right. Yeah. Maybe I should put Vulcan in brackets there. Yeah, well, all right. Now, just as a little bit of an editing point, yes? If you see this in a story, right? The square brackets. The square brackets means it comes from the editor, not from the character, not from who's saying it. If it was in regular brackets, regular parentheses, then it would be Cornelius saying, even Calvin, Vulcan, right? It would be his in brackets comment. But no, in square brackets like that, it's coming from the editor or a third party source, right? From outside, right? Yeah. Just for those who aren't sure what he means, right? Yeah. End of part 2, pursuing ideals. And it's a very profound comment that he makes this, that even Vulcan has its rebels, right? So he's saying that, yes, even though the system locks you down and you say, yeah, but I don't really have a choice. That's not true. And I agree fully. And Biela would fully agree. Yes, just because a system seems to be that this is how it is, you don't have to play. No? You can, and there are ways around it. You might think you don't have that option. But I was sharing this yesterday with a young man, right? How his life was completely changed because he had an understanding of appropriateness. And his understanding of appropriateness at a very early age 6, when he started school, he came to understand that he could have a public side, a social side, as he called it, and a private side. Not a secret side, a private side. Big difference. If somebody had asked, he would have said, but nobody asked, right? And the point is that you can be appropriate. In other words, play the game, but you're doing it because it's a survival necessity. But you aren't being consumed by that, like Ursula was. She was totally immersed in it, right? And same with Cornelius. He's not only fully immersed, but also consumed, locked into it. He can't really change. Ursula, to her credit, even though she was fully immersed, was only so because she hadn't thought there was an alternative option. But when she discovered one, whoops, she changes. Right? But just because we are forced to do something doesn't mean that that's the only option. We can do it and not do it both at the same time. And this is very important. When we think of either or and we break out of the either or mindset, we can say, oh, I can do simultaneously. I can do multiple things. Yeah. Either or is extremely, extremely, extremely limiting. profoundly so. Very big deal. So Ursula says, nope, there's difference. But Biela is saying this, right? At least with this point that he makes, that yes, you can be a rebel. But yeah, being a rebel is also destructive. For the young man, if he had rebelled against that society, right? He said, well, it's my social side which does all of the things that is expected of me. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm completely conformist, because a little bit of nonconformity is, if you an intelligent person, that's kind of expected of you, right? But he is doing stuff that doesn't bring him into undue negative attention. So even though he is a bit contrary here and there, that's still expected, right? Well, that's normal. It's like if you're an alien pretending to be a human, you can't be completely sensible. Which human being have you ever known to be completely sensible? I've never known somebody who's totally, utterly 100% sane, including myself. Sometimes I do things I'm like, seriously, really, it's just crazy, right? So if you want to imitate a human being, you've got to be a little bit crazy. See, appropriateness. Anyway, the same point here, that we can be, in other words, if you were looking to imitate a human being as an alien, you'd have to have your human side would be a bit crazy. Your alien side would be sane and sensible, assuming the aliens are sane and sensible, or have the ability to be so. I'm simply making a point about appropriateness. It's not either or. If you're a rebel, you can be a rebel in private, right? And have your own private life, your own other world, and develop and grow until such a time. Like when I was a kid, I couldn't be appropriately rebellious. You could say now, what I'm sharing here, this entire story is utterly rebellious. If I had written this story as a child, whatever, let's just assume that I could have, or shared the story, shared these ideas, I would have been in such trouble. My life would have been hell. I would have gotten hidings, and I will beat the stuff out of you, and blah and blah. That's how they treated dissension. Yeah, you couldn't go against the system and they would literally try and beat it out of you. Where do you get these ideas from? It's coming from the devil, or God knows what, or right? They would take it as a personal affront, because they're thinking in mentality of opposites. If you present an alternative and it's not in agreement with what they say is right and should be, well, then by implication, you're saying they're wrong. And they're so egotistical and full of narcissist nonsense that they can't handle this idea that you could say they're wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying you're something else. And they can't handle it, right? So you have to be very careful about being rebellious, where, well, some rebels are saying the system is wrong, but you don't have to. You can say, hey, I want to do my own thing, right? And now I'm not saying you're wrong in your system. You might be, but that's up to you. You can choose whatever you like. I respect your freedom to be wrong. Yeah, it's a very deep point. At the same time, I'm saying what I'm doing is different, but I couldn't do this as a child. Yeah, and I was aware that I couldn't. So I kept these thoughts, this type of thinking, I kept it to myself. Yeah. Very important. Private, public. Two different things. Appropriateness is not either or. Yeah, there's colors to it. Be the appropriate color as needed. Yes. Why does a chameleon, a literal chameleon? Now, it's interesting that Camelius's name is very close to chameleon, because he is somewhat of a chameleon in this story, right? Very powerful name. But look at a chameleon. A chameleon doesn't just have black and white. That would be absurd. It would be a very poor chameleon, or just green. That's the color it's mostly has, but it needs to be able to adapt to other colors, right? Isn't that incredible? Well, think of that when it comes to appropriateness, that a chameleon can change to any color, any complex color, right? Whatever you put it on. I mean, you've seen videos where they put people like a chameleon on a pattern, like on a carpet or something, and it adapts to it. It's quite fascinating how it does that. They don't really know how, by the way. Exactly. Incredible ability. How? Well, we need to be chameleons, appropriate chameleons. Appropriate chameleons. But yes, you adapt, but you never sacrifice your ethics. your principles, your core, right? You don't need to. You don't need to. You can be appropriate and keep your core, your integrity. Very powerful. All right. On that note, Norma, unless there's any comments, any questions, maybe I'll put Norma to sleep. If so, sleep gently and sleep beautifully, Norma. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. I won't wait for Bina to come back because she may or may not. But this is a good point to end it on. We're at the end of it anyway. I actually did want to do a bit more. If Bina does come back, I wanted to go back to the me of when and now. The when and more, I mean. The me of when and more. But maybe we'll do that tomorrow. We might even read a different story tomorrow. Not that tomorrow's, we might just do a bonus one tomorrow. Yeah. Bina was keen to do a capital R reading on a Ray Bradbury story in honor of Ray Bradbury. So it was that one quote of his. Just that one quote was a big deal for Bina. Doesn't mean the rest of what he has says makes sense, but nonetheless, she wanted to just read one of his short stories, do a capital R reading on it, in honor of him, in appreciation. Yeah. So we'll see. Maybe we'll do that tomorrow. We'll see how things go. Brilliant, brilliant. All right. Bye-bye, Norma. I don't know if you're still here or not, but bye-bye if you are. Bye-bye, bye-bye, bye-bye. Everybody. All right, here we go. End meeting for all.